Since you're watching this video, I know you want to get the highest grade you can on your outline, and I'd like to help you do it. I will focus on telling you what specifically I want in the outline. On the top, I'd like to see the speech type and topic. So is it an informative speech or a persuasive speech? And then what is it that you are covering in the speech? What is your speech about? The purpose statement also needs to be written. You might think of this as your thesis statement or your central idea. And then word for word, verbatim, I want to see the introduction and conclusion and your preview and your summary statement. Now, I know that when you deliver the speech, it will likely be different than what you've identified on there. You aren't going to have it memorized word for word, and even if you did have it memorized word for word, you might have to ad lib up there. But I want to know that you've at least thought it through enough, that you've figured out how you're going to say it. In terms of detail, I've already mentioned before that I want you to outline to at least the third level. Remember, the first level are the Roman numerals, your main point. The second level are the A's and B's, the subpoints to the Roman numeral main points. And then the third level are the little 1s and 2s that show up underneath the A's and B's. I want it to be at least 2 pages. That should not be difficult if you're outlining to the third level. And the details should be enough so that somebody could pick up your speech outline and read it and figure out what it was you were planning to say. In terms of references, if you're citing your sources in your speech, those are oral source citations, they need to show up in the outline proper where you actually cited them. I would like to see them highlighted because then it makes it easier for me to find them, to see how many you have, whether they're used appropriately, and whether they're good quality. Everything that you looked at when you were putting your speech together, including those that you cited in your speech and those that you looked at but didn't end up citing in your speech, you would add in the bibliography, which is the last page. I don't require that you identify your transitions, but some people like to include those. Those are optional. Here's a sample outline, and you'll see that it's for an informative speech on how to outline, as that's clearly identified at the top of the page. The purpose is also clearly written out. Even though you won't say it in the speech, it needs to show up on the outline. You'll notice the introduction is written word for word, and if you've listened to my previous lecturettes, you'll also notice that I didn't exactly say it like this, that I had a version of this, but it wasn't verbatim, word for word. And that's okay, as long as it's written out verbatim. In that introduction, I cited Jeffrey Deaver, and that is specifically identified as an oral source citation, and the in-text citation from Brainy Quote is identified as well. The previous statement is written out word for word as well. You'll notice that it identifies the 3 main points of what an outline is, the elements of a formal outline, and then how to prepare an outline that will get you an A. Written out exactly as you would say it. Then we start to deviate. We no longer use the full sentence outline. We use the alphanumeric outline. So here you can see the formal outline style. In this case, I went down to the 4th level with the little A's and B's. You'll also notice that there is a reference in there from Los Angeles Valley College Library 2007, which is what I looked at when I identified the 3 types of outlines. So it is here on the outline when I talked about it. You would continue this format for the second and the third point. The transition shows up here, and that is again optional. At the end of the outline, this is going to be on at least the end of the second page, if not on a later page, you will see the summary statement. Again, reminding us of the 3 main points that were discussed in the speech, and you would write it as you would say it. And then also verbatim, you'll see the conclusion. You'll start your bibliography on the next page. You'll label it as either works consulted if it's for MLA format, or references if you're using APA format. And remember to use the correct referencing form, both for those in-text citations and the bibliographic citations. It's quiz time. What specific outline elements should be verbatim or word for word? Do the introduction and/or conclusion need to be identified in the final outline? And do you need to include your references in the outline or in the end as endnotes?